When it comes to small group instruction, there are some things that I know I just could not live without in teaching small group instruction and reading specifically. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my must-haves for guided reading in my classroom. Stay tuned. Welcome back, Educational Rock Stars. I'm your host, Farah from Farah Henley Education, where I strive to bring you actionable tips, strategies, and simple systems to take back into your classroom to make your teacher life a little easier. Now, if this is your first time joining me here on the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so that you get notified when I go live or upload a new video here on the channel. Like I said, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my must-haves for my guided reading instruction, and I think it's going to be a little different than what you're probably expecting. I'm not going to be sharing a bunch of like Amazon links or anything like that for things for you to go buy. There are lots of tools that I used with regard to my small group instruction. You know, I had organizational shelves, I had carts, I had all those things. But I want to share with you actually like some of the things that I used inside my lessons and specifically kind of my routine for how I went through things. And stick around to the end because I am going to be sharing with you a couple free downloads that you can grab that are going to help you if you want to implement any of these must-haves into your small groups. They're going to include those must-haves as well as my specific routine, like exactly from start to finish, how I did a guided reading lesson. So I'm going to share that with you, so stick around to the end if you're interested in grabbing that. All right, so let's dive in. And the first thing that I want to share with you is I always started my guided reading group. So I've called my students over to my table, and I always started my guiding reading groups with a warm-up activity. Now, that could be any number of things. It could be a simple game you play with them. It could be reviewing what you did the day before. There are all kinds of things you can do for warm-up activities. Now, me personally, I absolutely loved using Super Speed. Now, specifically, I used Super Speed 1000, and this is a game that was developed by Whole Brain Teaching. And I love this game with regard to sight words. It's specifically geared towards sight words. And the reason I love it so much is because when you use Super Speed 1000, you are going to be able to practice sight words with your students really, really quickly. So this is what it looks like. This is the cover to it. So if you go to wholebrainteaching.com, you can find this on their website and you can download it. And what I did is I simply printed it out and I made every student a copy. And so they had a copy. And then I actually bound mine with my binding machine. I actually had a binding machine. And I would bind mine into like little spiral binds, bounded notebooks. Is that a word? Bound notebooks, spiral bound notebooks. And so every student had one. Now, here's the thing. I actually adapted it for my students. So I would make sure I didn't play it exactly the way that they say to play it in the game. I adapted it so that we got 1 minute. Every student got 1 minute of quick practice. It was just a quick warm-up activity at the beginning of our guided reading groups. Now, this meant I like to keep my guided reading groups, for those of you who might be a part of Learning Centers Made Easy, I like to keep my guided reading groups from anywhere from 4 to 6 students. Depending on how many students were in there, I might say one day, these 3 get to play, the next day, these 3 get to play. But while they're playing, the other ones are following along and they're actually trying to catch their mistakes. So it gave everybody a little bit of a warm up. And then on some days, I would let all of them have a chance to play. Now, you can read the instructions, and I'll kind of share with you how I adapted them. So what I did is I had every student come to the table, and once I got this in place, they actually knew what was coming. So they knew when they sat down at my table to go ahead and get their Super Speed out and be ready. And I actually made it a game, like whoever was ready first got to go first. And so they would come to the table, they would pull their Super Speed out, and I would set a timer and I would say go. This also allowed me to warm up with one student while maybe the others were still trying to get their stuff together. And I could start immediately as soon as students came to my table. So they got 1 minute to see how far they could go, if they could break their record from the day before. And when you read the instructions, you'll kind of understand. And they would play, and if they broke their record, they got to go to the back and they got to color a star. But I did this every single day at the beginning of each guided reading group as a warm-up activity. Now, maybe you want to come up with a different warm-up activity, but I do encourage you to have some sort of warm-up activity for when they come to your table so that they kind of know what to expect every time they come and they can immediately go ahead and get started. Now, the Super Speed 1000, it is a totally free resource. So as all of the whole brain teaching resources, so you can jump over there and grab Super Speed 1000 for free and download and use that with your students. The second thing that I want to share with you, and is kind of the second part, and these are key resources that I used with my students when I was teaching lessons, and those are the visuals, because let's face it, our students, some of our students are very visual learners, some of our students are very auditory learners, and some of our students are very kinesthetic learners. But I find that most of the time our students need a combination of both. So it never hurts to have those visuals. So a few visuals that I want to share with you are some, and these are going to be part of my free download that I'm going to share with you, where you can grab all of these. My first piece is my reading friends, and I used these primarily in the lower grades, but I found that even with some of my even 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students who might be ESL students who might be struggling. I mean, let's face it, I've had 5th grade students before that were on a 1st grade reading level, and you're having to do some intervention with them. These reading friends are super, super helpful in helping them learn how to sound things out, how to use their strategies to figure out words. Now, I know that there is a big, huge push. It seems like the in thing right now to teach phonetic reading. I've always taught that way. That's how I learned how to read back in the day. We're not going to talk about how long ago that was, but specifically these reading friends have friends like Looking Lion, they have Lips the Fish, Flip the Monkey, that are going to teach them some strategies for when they come upon a word that they don't know or they don't understand, and it's going to help them implement some of those phonics skills that you're teaching them when sounding words out. So I love my reading friends. Now, another part of those visuals, and I don't have them to show you right now, but they are inside the free download, are my comprehension super friends. So I turned our comprehension skills into superheroes. And just like our reading friends, I made posters that had each one of the comprehension strategies turned into a superhero. And we had those available for the students as well, including on little bookmarks. And those are included. Every student could have a bookmark that would allow them to, as they're reading, they would have those right in front of them to remind them which ones to use. Now, the comprehension super friends, I would have them, and as we got to a comprehension skill, I would introduce the comprehension skill as a superhero, because these comprehension skills were superheroes in the fact that they helped us become better readers. And that's what superheroes do, right? They help us with things. So these particular superheroes helped us become better readers. And so those comprehension super friends are also available in that free download. Now, the next visual that I used with my students were something that in this comprehension superheroes, the reading friends you've probably seen around before. I did not invent them. I did create my own posters, which are what's included in the download. The comprehension super friends, I kind of developed that. I mean, as far as creating the superhero friends, and my students absolutely loved them. And I also developed punctuation pals, because one of the things that I ran into with my struggling readers was they often read and they skipped over the punctuation. And especially when we're wanting our students to read with inflection and with attitude, or really pay attention to the punctuation, because that's where all some of the feelings come in when they're reading, which actually helps with their comprehension. So I developed the punctuation pals, and I kept those on a ring, just like you'll see right here. I kept them on a ring, and I could, some years all of my students had little copies inside their folders. They had little rings like this. Other years, I just had my own and I would pull them out. And as we were talking about how punctuation affects our reading and how we need to change our voice with certain punctuation, and we need to change the inflection in our voice with certain punctuation. This was super, super helpful, especially with my early readers, because they tended to want to just read the words and skip the punctuation, and especially those ESL learners as they're learning to read English as well. So we had our punctuation pals, and we would talk about each one. We introduced each one as they came up, and they learned these punctuation pals, and they became their friends because each punctuation pal has their own name, and we loved our punctuation pals. So all of those visuals are included in my free download that I'm gonna drop the link as soon as we're done here. And for my guided reading with total physical response. And for those of you who are not familiar with total physical response is using gestures, having your students mimic after you, having your students use movement in their learning. And it is exactly from start to finish how I ran a guided reading lesson, a 10 to 15 minute guided reading lesson using some of the very same visuals that I've been sharing with you here today. Now, the next thing that I could not live without inside my guided reading lessons, that was my data pages. Am I the only one? I had to have a way to track their data. I had to have a way to keep notes. And listen, how many of you have been keeping notes on sticky notes and they're everywhere, or they're inside, like you've got notes in notebooks and on paper because you just grab whatever's next to you and you're taking notes, and you've been looking for a way to keep it all in one place and have it all right there so that you can just have it all. And that's what I was struggling with my small group instruction, whether it be my reading instruction or my math instruction. And I wanted everything in one place. And I wanted it all in one place because when I found that I needed it the most was either during parent-teacher conferences, during IEP meetings, or I needed it for lesson planning. I mean, let's be real. When I'm lesson planning, I need to be able to go back and look and see what was, little Susie struggling with. I need that information right there at my fingertips. So I developed my Ultimate Classroom Binder. It does actually include a lesson planner and all the printables that you could possibly need for things in your classroom. Now, it also includes data pages for your small group instruction. It includes some planning pages for your small group instruction as well. And guess what? Like everything else I'm sharing with you today, this is totally free. So I'm going to be dropping a link after we get done chatting here, and you're going to be able to grab that for free as well and get that downloaded. You can put it together. It's great to have so that you can just grab one binder and go to your IEP meetings, one binder, take it home. If you lesson plan at home like I did, not always the smartest thing to do, but let's be real, most of us do. One binder to take to your PLC meetings, all the things, it can all be in one place. And you can grab this totally for free. I will drop that link in the notes as soon as we are done. Now, the next part I just could not live without inside my small group instruction is student materials. Now, I'm not talking about pencils. I'm not talking about scissors and glue and things like that. We know students are going to need those. That's kind of a no-brainer. But I'm talking about their reading folders. I'm talking about having a specific folder for each student to bring to guided reading so that anything we did during the guided reading lesson, it could go into their folder. And specifically, I used interactive notebooks during guided reading. I loved doing interactive notebooks activities during guided reading. So I had interactive notebooks that my students would use, and they had reading journals. Now, it wasn't always interactive notebooks it wasn't always interactive notebook activities that went into these reading journals. Maybe they were just simply writing on the pages, but it was a single place for them to keep any of the work or any of the writing work or anything like that we did in our small group, and they could keep it all inside their journal. This was super, super helpful when it came time for parent-teacher conferences and I needed to pull things to show parents what they were struggling with. I was able to specifically pull a certain student's journal and I was able to like flip to an activity and show them what they were struggling with. It also was really great for notes. Even though I used my binder and I kept my and data tracking and all that inside my binder, and I kept all my notes, the teacher notes and stuff, I would actually still use sticky notes, and I might write a little note on something, stick it on the page, kind of, or I would turn it so that part of the flap, part of the sticky note was sticking out, kind of creating that tab or whatever. And I would have that, write a quick little note that I would know what it was about. And I would simply, after we were done with that guided reading lesson, I would have them leave their notebook with me, and I would be able to flip directly to that. I would see what my note was, because if you're like me, after you've taught, maybe this was a student that was in your first group and then you've taught 23 other students, you sometimes you don't remember what it was that you needed to go back and look at. But I see their journal is there on my table. I flip to that sticky note, I see my note, and I was able to stick it right there on their journal. And I can either leave a note on the page, or maybe I need to take a picture of it to send to parents, whatever the case may be. But having that single place, and I loved interactive notebooks. So these guided reading journal covers are included in that download, where all the other visuals are as well. So you'll be able to get those for free also. You guys probably know, in fact, I want to know right now drop in the comments if you know what this next one is. It is like a no-brainer. If you know me at all, it is something I cannot live without during my small group instruction. And so it's probably going to come as no surprise what this next thing is. And that is centers. Yeah, I can't live without centers during my small group instruction, because my students who are not at the table with me, they got to be doing something, right? They've got to have something to do. And all of our centers, all of the centers that we have developed for both math and literacy, are designed to be review and enrichment. Here's the thing I'm very, very particular, and if you are a member of Learning Centers Made Easy, you know this. I'm very, very particular about the types of activities that I believe should be in centers, whether it's math centers or reading centers. If you are using centers in order to allow you to teach in small groups, those center activities have to be activities that they can do independently. I see so many activities out there that are labeled as centers. You can find them on blogs. You can find them on Teachers Pay Teachers. I see so many that say perfect for centers. And I look at them and I think, absolutely not. And I experienced this, as a teacher, when I would go to purchase things or I would download things, I would say it was perfect for centers. I would get it downloaded, and I was like, this is not perfect for centers. My students, they can't do this on their own. They're going to need me, and they're going to need help with this. So this is not perfect for a center. But our centers don't require that. Our centers are designed to be independent activities. We have kept them simple in design, okay? Simple in design. And I hate this word, but this is the word I'm going to go with: rigorous in content. Simple in design, but rigorous with content. And what that means is your students are going to get the review and enrichment that they need, okay? Now, that is the one thing on this list that is not free, but you can jump over to my shop on Teachers Pay Teachers, and you can check them out. I've got them for grades K through 5 in both math and literacy, and we have not one, but 2 volumes. So you literally could have all the centers you would ever need for your classroom. And if you are a member of Learning Centers Made Easy, our membership, then you have access to all of them already in both printable and digital. So we have poured our heart and soul into these. They follow a very specific, I can't speak tonight for some reason. They follow a very specific pattern so that your students learn how to play the games, and they are going to be able to do them independently. The skills just change. And we don't keep them boring where like every game is the same like activity. No, we've probably got 20 to 25 different types of games, and we kind of rotate and mix those up so that your students are going to see them again and again and again, but it's not like you're going to be getting like all 200 centers. I think it's like 240 centers if you buy the math and literacy together. All 240 of them are all the same game, just the skill changed. No, that's not what they are. So there are going to be different games, but they are going to repeat game styles so that your students can do them independently, because nothing is worse than giving your students an activity and them not being able to do it because they are having to learn how to play the game. That is absolutely useless for you teaching in small groups. Now, if you're looking for more tips, strategies, and simple systems to take back into your classroom to make your teacher life easier, check out the videos on your screen. Thanks for watching, and keep being an educational rock star.